Hello and welcome back to Richmond Plays Games. This is episode 2 of our Stationeers playthrough, and we are ready to get right back to it. So, let's load our world. When we left off last, we were working on getting our electronics printer up and going because we have our solar panel, we have our area power controller, we've got our auto lathe and our arc furnace set up. So, we can gather power, we can feed it into the battery of our area power controller, and we can use that to feed our manufacturing bench of the auto lathe and our arc furnace, which allows us to smelt material. So, get the mining belt, and we'll pop some copper in there, and we'll start smelting that, because we're going to need some copper, and we are going to need some gold if we are going to make a electronics burner. Specifically 10 grams of copper and 2 grams of gold. We'll go ahead and make a full stack each. Well, we might not make a full stack of gold, and we might not make a full stack of copper. We'll see. We're going to do a full stack of copper for sure. We'll need all of that, but a full stack of gold is overkill. We'll probably do like 10 and then call it good. And the reason why we'll probably do that is because this copper, if you can recall from our last episode when we were smelting our iron ore, was going very quickly. Copper goes slightly slower than iron, but still at a reasonable pace. Gold smelts extremely slowly. This has to do with the amount of energy, the temperature required. There are numbers that are involved in exactly what sort of temperature range you have to get different ores to in order to smelt them, but I believe it is because gold has the highest temperature requirement of any of them, so it requires the longest in the arc furnace to smelt. There are more efficient ways of smelting, which we will get to eventually. For now, we might go do a little bit more mining. If you notice, flying straight up in the air is not that efficient of a way of scouting the terrain. Not only is it potentially lethal if you turn your jetpack off while in the air or run out of propellant, but there's no danger of that because we have quite a bit of propellant in the form of nitrogen to start out with. But it just doesn't generally load very much around you. You only get about, maybe about 50 meters or so. I'm not sure exactly how the scale goes in this game. But you don't get a ton of area around you actually loaded up at any one time. So, we'll have to go search the old-fashioned way. That looks like some silver over there. We don't need silver yet, but it's good to know that we've got silver nearby, because we will need silver eventually, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain to find. This right here is some kind of ice, whether it is oxide or it is oxite, and that over there is volatiles. That is going to become very important in our very near future as we get into smelting more advanced materials like steel. We're going to go ahead and mine up a little bit more copper, and then we're going to go see if we can top up these other 2 slots with iron. And then I might show you a trick for being able to increase your mineral hauls as you go out on your mining excursions. Now, I do not recommend venturing too far away from your base, and you want to keep it in sight of you, because early on you might not have your tracker up and going. There is a portable tracking beacon that you start out with. It's in one of the crates over there. However, it does use a small battery and it goes through power fairly fast. So unless you have a reliable means of keeping those batteries charged up, of regularly topping them off or charging them from empty to full without putting a ton of strain on your power systems, then I don't recommend setting up the beacon quite yet until you get your automated solar up and running and a little bit more of your power generation smoothed out. So there's a couple of tricks we can do in order to increase our mineral haul. We've got our mining belt all filled up with ores, but that's not all we can carry. For one, we can take this little jetpack backpack and we can put some ores right from out there. We can hold down the left Alt and drag them into our backpack. Then we do also have 2 hand slots. Whoa! Anytime you start flying away, you can just tap the J button to turn on your jetpack. Sometimes the moon's gravity can get away from you a little bit if you're not careful. Sometimes you can use it to your advantage to take leaping bounds. Oh, wrong way. So we are heading back over towards our working base. I say working base because it's not a true base yet. We have yet to set up any sort of pressurized atmosphere. It's just kind of a work platform over there. But we'll get there. We will get there.
Jetpack on.
There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that. We got some copper. We won't throw iron in the auto or in the arc furnace quite yet. We'll take that copper and we'll pop it into there. Then we'll take that gold off of our pack. We will split it in half and we will set half of that to smelt because, as I mentioned earlier, gold smelts extremely slowly. I don't want to be waiting forever for us to get that gold smelted. So we will just do that and call it good. And I will show you a little trick we can do. While we do not yet have our automated solar tracking up and running, let's just clear out these inventories here. Sometimes I like to just toss these ores on the ground. Another thing you can do if you don't want to have ores all over the place that you might run into, because this game does feature realistic physics, if you go, say, run into it, it's going to go off. It might roll off to who knows well, where it might roll into a big crater or a cave like that one that we fell into at the beginning of episode 1. So you can stack them all right there, or you can come over here and you can put them inside these things. The other thing that you could do is you could actually create some of these crates. I believe the auto lathe recipe for these crates just involves, whoop, did I run into that? Nope. I believe the auto lathe recipe involves some number of iron, 10 iron, and you can have some crates. You can actually drag them around, open them up, put your stuff in there, and there's actually also a container mount for another 10 iron that you can use to fasten them down so that you can fasten them to some iron frames and maybe create like a line of full of crates. Personally, I prefer to use large lockers, which I think you can make here. Yes, you can make lockers, which are iron also, which we might very well do here. We might make some. Let's, in order to squeeze the last little drop of efficiency out of this day, we'll tilt that all the way up, top off that battery. We're going to go ahead and turn that back off, but we are smelting our gold still. But if we are going to want to have power going at night, then we're going to need a solution other than just relying on solar, because that battery right there, even though it could get us through the night, we also have to consider the fact that we're continually using the large battery in our EVA suit, and we really do not want to be in a situation where we have no battery power left whatsoever. So a nice temporary measure that you can take in order to stop yourself from an energy crisis while you are getting everything ready to go. And I just feel like this rotated around when we reloaded the world. I don't remember this stuff being on this side, although maybe I'm just misremembering. The solid generator kit that is inside one of our construction supplies crates, we can take this over here. And there are a couple different types of generators in this game. There are solid generators, there are gas generators. Oh, hey, our gold is done. Let's go ahead and put that over on the auto lathe, and we'll start another stack of iron smelting because we will need it. So there are 3 different types of generators. There are solid gas, there are solid generators, there are gas generators, and there are, I believe they are called thermal generators. They use a difference of pressure in order to create power, but it's a very, very small trickle of power, not really enough to even mention. So we're going to set it up like this. Yeah, we'll set it up just like that. That way the power output is right here. And this is our solid fuel generator output. So what the solid fuel generator essentially is it is a coal-fired generator. It will turn coal into energy. Pretty simple. That's why on episode 1 I mined that coal, because we can use it in a pinch to get some energy. It'll actually put out a pretty good amount of energy, but it's really bad for actually using to directly power things because it pulses. Just kind of just short constant or just short bursts of energy. It goes boop, 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 boop with large quantities of power, but it is irregular. So it's not great for hooking directly up to and constantly keeping powered. For one, it uses quite a bit of coal. That stack of 50 coal that we put in there will actually go pretty quickly. However, as we turn that on, we'll notice this heat up pretty quickly. I bet you before we know it, we will see that battery go from green to blue. And then at that point, we could go ahead and swap our EVA suits battery over to this one. It's flashing, flashing, flashing. And you'll notice how sometimes the light will just go off. That's in the moments when it is no longer supplying power. Because in between individual units of coal being consumed, there's like a short hiccup in power. And that hiccup in power is actually enough to stop the progress of something being constructed on the autolathe, for example. So if you wanted like a stack of 50 iron frames to be built on the autolathe, if you're going directly off of a solid fuel generator, it'll actually interrupt and stop printing like maybe after you got like 4 or 5 because of the way that it pulses every time that it uses up an individual unit of coal. So we'll switch that around. We'll leave the solid fuel generator on for right now. I'll turn it off for just a second just so that we can see how much coal we have left. 38. We've already used up 12 units of coal. This uses up your solid fuel very rapidly, so it's not advised for long-term operation. Really, we want to get to automated solar power as soon as we can. So with that being said, I'll stop talking about automated solar power, and I will just get us automated solar power. So we need an electronics printer. It's going to print out pretty slow. Another reason why we want this APC to provide a nice, smooth, even supply of power, because if our power supply gets interrupted right in the middle of this, we could be at 90% of this build and suddenly have it fail because we lost our power input. So, APCs, they're very good. Keep that battery charged though, very important. All right, we will go ahead and start smelting some more ore. Let's go ahead and get some more copper. We'll probably need it for more wire, and then we might do some more iron because iron you go through pretty rapidly. So it's going to take a minute to do that. And while it is doing that, I'm going to go ahead and expand our network of iron frames. And I'm going to expand it out in this direction, one level higher. The reason I'm going to do that is because this is where we're going to put our solar panels as we put them out. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do 4 additional solar panels plus the one that we already have. Then we're going to take our iron sheets from our inventory. We're going to take our arc welder and we are going to weld them so that we can put stuff on them. And the reason I'm doing this at a little bit of a higher elevation is because you don't really want to have anything blocking your solar panels. They want to be able to get as clear of a view of the sunrise as they can so that they can get maximum efficiency. Speaking of maximum efficiency, let's go ahead and flip this one towards the sunrise so that when the sun comes up, we can immediately start getting some sunlight power onto our APC. For some reason, it stopped doing that. I think the solid generator will actually automatically shut off when it has no demand on it. So when it hits a point where that battery is full, whoa, let's turn that off before it prints another one. We don't want to use up all that extra stuff. If there's no demand on the printer, like if the battery is fully charged and there might be like a moment when one individual unit of coal finishes up while that battery is fully charged before either of these call for a unit of power, that the solid fuel generator will auto shut off. So that's why it shut off with 14 coal still in there. So let's shut this off for now. And let's set up our electronics printer. Now, you don't actually want to set up your manufacturing benches like right next to each other like this. You actually want to like put them offset, kind of like this, because what can happen is you can have something pop out of the output of your autolathe, and if your electronics printer is facing the same orientation, you might just have it go straight out of there into the input of your electronics printer, which sometimes can cause them to get gobbled up. You can actually see the contents of what you have in there down here, and if you want to take anything in there out, you pull the handle, and if it is on, it'll spit out anything that's inside there. But sometimes, if they are non mineral ingredients, it will eat them. I've heard that that bug has fairly well gotten ironed out these days, but I've had some bad experiences with some very valuable things getting eaten immediately after getting printed from a autolathe. So we're not going to mess around with that. We are just going to take our iron sheets, put them in our left hand, take our welding torch, put it in our right hand, turn on the welding torch, continue the print. We are going to turn off the welding torch. Always, always, always turn off your welding torch before you put it away, because the welding torch, if you leave it on, it'll get hot and it will blow up. And it will rip open your suit. It will destroy your welding torch, which is a pain to replace. And then you'll go flying across the moon. You'll have to duct tape your suit back closed. You just won't. You won't have fun. You'll be very frustrated with yourself. You'll sit there and check and see when the last time you saved it was, and you will wish that, like me, you had it set up to autosave every 5 minutes, just in case you make a boneheaded mistake. Or maybe you like to live with the consequences of your own actions, and you don't ever want to save. That's fine. You do you. So, we'll finish up the electronics printer by putting on those plastic sheets, using the screwdriver, and boom, we've got an electronics printer. Then we will use the, let's see, remember the trick with our wire cutters and extending out cables. Boom. And as you can see, we're awful low on cable, which we will need to address the lack thereof shortly. So let's take some iron and put it in there. Let's take some copper. Let's take some gold. The first things that we want to print out is we want more solar panels. So we go for kit, solar panel, right there. You can cycle through all the recipes manually, or you can just go find recipe right here and get what you want. So this requires 10 iron, 5 gold, and 20 copper each. Good thing we made some more copper, huh? And we're going to need even more copper. Let's put this iron in here. We're not going to need quite so much iron in there, I don't think. And as soon as that iron is done, we'll start another stack of copper, which we'll probably need, because at this moment we have enough copper to make 4 more solar panels, but not much more after that. In fact, we'll probably need the rest of that gold also if we make 4 solar panels. So for right now, I'm just going to make 2 solar panels so that we have enough ingredients to make sure I can get everything we need for the automatic solar tracking done. So there's 2 solar panel kits. So we'll run on over here and we'll build some solar panels. We're going to do the same orientation where we put the data side towards the sunrise, and you will see why that is very shortly. Bada bing, bada boom. We've got that. Now, in order to finish up these solar panels, we need some glass sheets to finish them off. There we go. And we will need to wire them up. Now, I am pretty low on wire. I've only got 8 cable left. So we will sit here and we'll make some cable. We could, now what I should do if I had all of the ingredients I wanted at the moment, is to build heavy cable. The difference is that the regular cable coils have a limit on how much power can go through them. Specifically, I believe it is 5,000 watts. Once you get above 5,000 watts, cable starts burning up. Just like in real life, how cable size has specific ampacities that it is rated for, once you put too much power through this cable, it burns up. And when it burns up, it opens up your circuits. It stops you from providing power to your stuff, and the heavy cable coil prevents that. The heavy cable coil, I believe, can take all the way up to something like, might be 25,000 watts. It might be even more than that. Regardless, it is quite a bit more. And as you notice, the cable coil heavy requires half a gram of gold and half a gram of copper per unit, whereas the regular cable coil is just half a gram of copper. So it adds in a gold requirement as well, but what it does do is allow you to put more power on it. So if you get to more than 10 solar panels, you will need to have heavy cable, because at that point you'll be generating about 500 watts per cable coil, or I'm sorry, be generating about 500 watts per solar panel. And at that point, you'll be at 5,000 watts, and it will start burning up regular cable. So I'm going to build a stack of, call it 30 of this regular cable. And we'll stop right there for a second. We'll put that back in. And then I'm going to build up another stack of cable separately. Now, the reason I'm going to do another separate stack of cable is I'm actually going to paint this cable a different color. I'm going to do that using the paint cans that you start out with. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I, being an electrician in real life, like to separate out my data and my power networks. It is not a requirement in this game. Really, they are interchangeable. Data will travel along your power networks. In fact, there's a lot of things in this game that simply do not have separate power and data ports. They just have a single port. And if you try and separate out the networks, then you're not going to get anywhere. There are, though, like transformers that will isolate your networks, that they will pass power, but they will not pass data. There's all sorts of things that there are all sorts of things that you can do in this game. And if you want to just pretend that all wire in the world is red and you never want to mark it differently, more power to you. If that's what helps you, or if you are able to keep everything straight in your head without having to do any sort of color coordination, then that is actually going to be better for you in the long run, because it will be less resource intensive. But for me, I like to do it this way. So that red is my power. Now I'm going to put, oh, whoopsies. I didn't mean to combine them. I'm actually going to separate them out, and I'm going to have them. Probably don't even need to completely have them. 23, sure, we'll have them. Okay, so we're going to come over here to our crate that has consumable supplies in it, and there's a bunch of spray paint cans. I'm going to grab the green. We're going to drop this on the ground, and I'm going to spray paint it. It used up 6% of the charge on my spray paint, so I can't do that an infinite number of times. And actually making paint is a fairly involved process that involves agriculture, which is one of the most difficult parts of this game. So use your paint sparingly. Don't use it willy-nilly. So I've got my green cable for my controls. I personally like to use green for my data networks, because if you notice, the little symbol for data networks in this game is green. So that's why I like to use green. All of this stuff is already red, matching the power symbol, so it all works out. Let's take this copper, put it in our electronics printer, take the rest of that gold, and get it going. Okay, electronics printer. We are going to do our automated solar tracking now. The key to automated solar tracking starts with the sensor. 3 iron, 1 gold, 1 copper. We got plenty of material for that, so let's create a sensor. So what this sensor is going to do is that it is going to be set facing the direction of sunrise. Now, if we remember, we set up our data port on these facing the sunrise, which is over there. And the reason we did that is because this is the side of the frame that we are going to build our solar tracking system on, because your daylight sensor must face the sunrise in order to work properly. If it doesn't face the sunrise, it won't work properly. Now you can mouse through to get different types of sensors. You can get your daylight sensor, you can have a gas sensor, a motion sensor. Motion sensors, you can actually create motion sensors that will turn your lights on and off. Those are pretty cool. But we need the daylight sensor. So let's see here. We'll put it right there. Sure, we'll put it right there. There is one other thing I'm going to do, and that is I'm going to set up a dedicated area power controller just for my daylight sensing, my whole setup, my circuit. After we have the daylight sensor, the next thing that we need is our logic chips. Now these logic chips, their input output and different ones will do different things. So the logic input output, and we're going to print. We will actually need two of these. One for input, one for output, because that sensor that we put over there requires a input chip in order to gather the output number from the daylight sensor and be able to use it. You can't just put the daylight sensor directly into, say, a math unit. So we've got our input output I/O chips there. Then we are going to need logic processors and logic memory. Now there's two different ways of building a solar tracking network. There is a simple way and there is a slightly more complicated but worth it way. Now the simple way of building a solar tracking network is actually really self-explanatory. Let me show you here. We'll get out our tools. These things, as you adjust their tilts, so if we have this one going to -90 to where when it is at 0, it faces the sunrise. It goes from 0% of a vertical, and then if our vertical goes all the way up to 100%, it is facing as far as it can the other direction. Now that is 180 degrees of travel. Well, not quite, because even though it is 100% supposedly corresponding to 180 degrees of motion, as I mentioned on episode 1, there's about 15 degrees of dead zone here and about 15 degrees of dead zone there. You can kind of see it is not truly vertical. That means that even though the sun is traveling 180 degrees across the sky, the solar panel is only traveling 150 degrees from 0% to 100%, so it won't work precisely right. However, it is possible to convert that 180 degrees of solar motion to 100% of tilt from 0 to 100 by simply taking the solar angle and dividing it by 1.8, and that will get you a number between 0 and 100. It will not be super efficient, one, because it does not exactly correspond to what these actually do. You'll get worse efficiency in the morning. You'll get right on close to 100% efficiency right at midday, but throughout all of the travel in between morning and midday and sunrise, you will get less than 100% efficiency. The advantage of the divide by 1.8 is that it requires less components. It only requires one memory chip that you store the value 1.8 in. It only requires one math unit that you have a divide by 1.8 in. So it is overall a more simple system that requires fewer components. However, if we look at this, these memory chips only are 1 gold and 1 copper apiece, not exactly breaking the resource bank, especially if you have on, like I do, the 50 gram per mineral vein. Some people say that that's cheating. I say, how can you cheat at a single player game? And even if it is, it's my game. I'm going to cheat at it if I want to. All it is doing is allowing me to spend more time doing the parts of this game that are actually fun. So we've got our two more logic memory chips. Then we need some logic processor chips. Now we would already need one if we were doing the divide by 1.8 strategy, but we're going to print out 3 since we're doing the more advanced strategy. one. And we've got more gold going anyway, so we would have plenty of gold even if we needed to do more, which we don't. We are going to come in with 1 gold to spare, which is going to work out just fine. Boom, and if you notice, it automatically kicked off since there was not enough resources to build another. So, what we're going to do here is we are going to take our logic memory and we have got to set these up. Sometimes if you try and right click directly onto your frame, it doesn't like to work out quite right. And what you need to do is come in and what you need to do is come in and actually like right click away from the wall and come back to the wall in order to get it to snap to the wall correctly. And I think I kind of messed this. Yeah, I kind of messed this up a little bit. I need to scoot that down a little bit. In fact, I'm going to scoot all of this stuff down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to scoot all of this stuff down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do logic memory, logic memory, logic memory. I'm going to take my daylight sensor, I'm going to deconstruct it with my hand drill, and I'm going to move it down here a little ways. Yeah, we'll move it over there. It doesn't really matter where it goes as long as it's facing the sunrise. Then our logic input output and our logic processors are going to be the next steps. We're going to first, I think, go ahead and connect these though. So we will go ahead and build a corner there, a corner there, 4-way junction there, and then off of that is going to depend. I think we're going to need more green cable actually, and I'll show you a trick for getting more colored cable even if you don't have any. I'm also probably going to end up flattening this out, I think, in order to be able to get access to all of that area over there. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now before we go any further so that it doesn't become an issue later and I can just finish this up. Oops. Equip the mining bolt onto our waste. Then we are going to open the mining belt. We're going to get out our mining drill, turn it on, and we're going to hit R on it. And you can actually set it to flatten instead of the default mode, which that will, as the name implies, allow you to flatten out the terrain. So what I really want to do is just get all of this little area right here in front of these iron frames flattened down so that I have the full area of the iron frames available to work with. I don't want to have any of it being covered up by moon dirt. There we go. That'll work. So we'll go ahead and set it back to default, and we'll turn it off, put it back on our mining belt, put our tool belt back on, and once again, like Batman, we have our trusty utility belt ready to go. So, logic input output. Once again, it was having trouble if I tried to go directly on there, so I had to do it this way. So we're gonna flip it around. This is a little bit of a tricky situation. So we have to power these. As you see, there is a power slot there on the bottom, and we are going from my right to my left. So it makes the most sense to put these upside down. You can actually go from left to right, which is the way I should have done this, but that is the way I'm building this out, so it's fine. I've done this enough times that I can build it upside down without too many difficulties. Aha, this is one of the classic blunders besides getting in a land war in Asia. I have allowed myself to get low on power without having a full battery at my APC. We're going to turn all this off so it charges better. We're actually going to go ahead and swap that medium charge battery for that low charge battery, and we are going to allow our solid fuel generator to go. It should be going. Yeah, it's going. It's charging. Yep, it's charging. Okay, so we're gonna give that a few minutes to charge up. Then we're going to set our logic reader up like so. We want to have a little bit of room so that we can get everything over there. In addition to our logic reader, you can scroll through these. This is the logic I/O. You can scroll through these and there are different construction options. So we made a logic reader. What we'll eventually want is a batch writer, and that will actually allow us to output, but that's at the very end of the line. So once we have our logic reader, we're going to take our logic processors and we're going to put them in line. Once again, trying to put them directly on there sometimes doesn't work, so I right click away from it, come back to it. Hey look, everything is peachy. Math unary, no. Logic math, yes, that is what we want. We want a logic math, and then we want a logic min-max. Once we have those two logic maths and a logic min-max, then we will have our batch writer here at the end. Okay, the next step is going to be to connect everything. I think before I connect everything, I am going to have to build some more green cable, but I will show you the trick for that. So we need to have all of these interconnected. And I'm going to go ahead and go make some more green cable right now. So, fun fact about things like cable is when you pick up a item that is stackable, like a cable coil, if you have existing of that item in your hand, it will add to that stack. If the stack that is in your hand is painted a color other than the default color, it will still add to the stack and it will just become a item of that same color. So that is a way to make your paint stretch. When I say be conservative with your paint usage, it's actually pretty easy to do since you should only ever have to use your paint one time on any one type of object. You shouldn't ever have to paint more than one stack of pipes a certain color. You'll never have to paint a stack of cable a certain color because you can continually use that stacking trick in order to do that until they patch it out at some point, which they might do. Let's see here. That does not have an input in the top. So we go, actually we don't need a T there. We just need a corner there. But then the output there will come up and it'll go up here to our solar panels. Okay, so that is our data side. All of these must be powered though. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these down. We're going to go grab our other APC out of our supply container. Now, the intent is that with this other APC that you will use it for an airlock. But I find that by the time you are getting an airlock, you already are more than advanced enough to, you're already more than sufficiently advanced to be able to build more of these APCs. I believe they require steel in order to build. However, by the time that you are making these, you shouldn't have any problem getting steel. Or by the time that you need more. The two that you get to start out with is plenty. So I'm going to bring this over here and I am going to add this area power controller into the generation side. I guess I could have done it differently. Let's do it more like that. So when I produce energy either via solar panels or via the solid generator, it will not only power this area power controller, but some of it will also go into this one. I will need another large battery in order to do that, I think. So I might just do one of my spare small batteries just for a bit, because a large battery does require steel, which we're not quite at yet. So we'll just make a small battery. I know I said don't use a small battery in your APC, but I'm breaking my own rule for the purposes of demonstrating. Okay, we can go ahead and smelt. We're going to go ahead and leave that because that right there is actually perfect for steel. So we'll slap that in there. We'll turn it on and we'll go ahead and cover it up. Ideally, we should never actually run into an issue where that small battery is not enough. I think a small battery is enough to power this overnight, but we'll aim to replace it with a large battery as soon as we possibly can. Oh, there's my suit's battery, triggering a low warning. See what I mean about these batteries going relatively quickly? And then just to make sure that we don't have any power issues, we'll tilt up the solar panels a little bit to get them to an angle that will get them some sun. We'll put it to a 40-degree angle there. And that way they'll charge that buddy up. Okay. Let's finish off powering up this side of everything. Do 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 do. Right there. And then we'll go ahead and put these T's in there first. Uh-oh. Need more cable. Quick to the printer. Cable coil. This one's running long, I know. I think, what are we at already? Woo, 40 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. If we do not have this done by an hour, we'll just have to hold off until the next episode. But I think we can get it done. We're just about there anyway. All that's left is the settings. The hard part is done. That should be enough to get us finished with this at least. Maybe, if I am looking at this right. So that is the power side. And if these aren't powered, they won't work. That little button right there turns them on. Hooray! If they're flashing, it means that something is not working right. It means either the way you have programmed them is incorrect or you have not programmed them yet. There is one thing that we can do that will make this much easier, and that is to get a labeler. If we don't have the labeler, then we have to scroll through multiple different circuit cards. Wow, got myself turned around there. Sometimes it can be easy to get turned around on the moon. Lack of visual reference since it all looks the same. But if we don't have these labeled, then sometimes it can be difficult in order to know which one's which. So for example, I'll kind of show you what I mean. We're going to make these, there are 3 values that we need. There is 100, there is these big ones go by larger numbers. If you just push them, they go by 100. If you hold down C for smaller increments, they'll go by tens. The smaller ones will go by ones, but if you hold down C, they'll go by 1/10. So we need 100, 15, and 1.5. So 1 click of the small one and 5 clicks with C held down. So if we come in here to the math unit, for example, I'll just program this logic reader. So our input is going to be our daylight sensor. The variable is solar angle. So that's programmed. So that will read the solar angle from the daylight sensor and it will output it. When we go to the input, we can easily find this input from the logic reader and we know that the logic reader is outputting the solar angle. But when we bring in this other input, this math unit right here is going to take our solar angle, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 15 from it, because we're missing 15 degrees of movement on the top, or on the beginning and end of each day. So we're going to subtract 15 from our solar angle. But how do we know which one of these memory units is 15? The answer is that we actually don't. The easy way to do it is to know what we should see on the output. So it is showing 26 on the output. Well, we know that we've got 127 coming in, and we're subtracting one of these memories. Well, that means that I'm on the 100 currently. But the way to make that easier is to come over here and label these. So instead of logic memory, I will label it 100 memory. Instead of this one that is set to 15, we'll label it 15 memory. And this one will be renamed to 1.5 memory. Then we'll rename these. This one will be renamed to solar angle minus 15. We'll name this one to what this one is going to do, which is going to be SA, solar angle minus 15. Let's show what we're actually doing. SA minus 15 divided by 1.5. The logic min-max is unique, so we don't really need to label that. So that should be all of the labeling that we need to do. This way, we will never get confused as to which one we are referring to when we are programming these. So now we know, okay, so I'm currently set for 100 memory. That is not what I want. I want 15 memory. So whatever one you have there showing is the one that is currently right there where it says solar angle minus 15. That is the name of this unit. 15 memory is the input that is currently going into that in green. Where it says change to SA minus 15 divided by 1.5, if you click that with a screwdriver, then it will move it to that next one. And you can hold C to go to the previous. But this way, you know what you have it currently on in green, and then what if you changed it, it would change it to is below that. So currently we've got the daylight sensor reading the solar angle, sending it to our first math unit. From that, we are subtracting 15. We do that once again because we lose about 15 degrees of dead zone at the beginning and end of each day because the solar panels do not actually go down to 0 degrees or to 180 degrees on the other side. Now, since we only have 150 degrees of travel, but we have 100% is how the solar panels are turned, we want to take the solar angle minus 15 is the operation that we're doing here. So our input is going to be solar angle minus 15. Then the other input we want it to be is to be memory 1.5. So that way we are taking the output of solar angle minus 15. Then we are taking the memory, which is storing the value 1.5, and our output is going to be to divide. And when you do a divide, it will divide 1 by input 2, and it is currently outputting 105, which seems right because we have 158 minus, or divided by 1.5, 105. That seems right. Okay. Last thing we're going to do before we send it all to the batch writer. We ran out of battery. Should have taken my own advice and not used the small battery. We can put another stack of coal in there. That way it can get this going. We will definitely change out to a large battery here soon. So, turn this one on. Our input is going to be the output of SA minus 15 divided by 1.5. So, let's go input 1 is SA minus 15 divided by 1.5. I could also just name this math unit 2 and just know that math unit 2 is the one that does that operation, but It doesn't matter, whatever you're more comfortable with. Input 2 is going to be 100. So we're going to reference the memory unit that is storing the value 100 in it. And what we want it to output is the lesser of those two, because when it is less than 100, that is when we actually are moving back to daylight. Okay, so our math unit, and this is what allows it to track back towards the sunrise. If we didn't have that, it would do funky things. It's been a while since I've actually looked at what it does if you don't have the min-max in there. I think it does like some sort of weird spinning stuff, but you can take my word for it or you can try it yourself. It works. Our input here is going to be the logic min-max, which is the lesser between the solar angle minus 15 divided by 1.5 and 100, the lesser of those two values. Then our output type, in order to do this part, we have to have our batch writer connected to at least one solar panel, because it does not let you go with a, don't want to use that last green cable. I want to make that green. It does not actually let you change your output type to being a, it does not actually let you change your output type to be a solar panel unless you have a solar panel hooked up to it. So now our output type is going to be solar panel. And then when it says output variable, we are going to go to vertical. So now, sometimes this has the unintended consequence of messing with the horizontal angle. We want it at negative 90 degrees such that the way that it is facing when it is at 0, it's going to fight me here, but we want it like this, where when it's facing 0, that it is facing towards the sunrise. And so what we're going to get as a result is, you'll be able to see this, is as nighttime progresses, it is going to track back towards the sunrise. And you can actually use this as a sort of clock or a reverse sundial, where it will you will know when it is going to be daylight again by when your solar panels get back to this side. So that is our solar tracking. And as you can see, it's not the most complicated thing that you can build in Stationeers, but it is a fairly complicated machine that you can simplify it down using the divide by 1.8 strategy, only needing one of those memory units, only needing one of these logic processors, taking out both of these, and just having one to divide by 1.8. You would still need a batch writer to write the vertical number to the solar panels, and you would still need a logic reader to pull the solar angle from the batch writer to pull the solar angle from the daylight sensor. But this way gets you near perfect efficiency, as we will see during our next daytime, which I think we will just have time to do as we get towards the end of this video, because I said I would go to an hour and turn it off at that point. And one thing about it is, I believe the day-night cycles are still 10 minutes long. So it looks like it's about 5 more minutes to sunrise. So I will let this ride. I will go ahead and connect this other one to our, network. And we can go ahead and move this solar panel up to, we'll go ahead and move that solar panel up to the top. That way that they're all in the same place. Let me just build a bit more cable. We'll go pick up the green one. And as we pick them up, these become green. That'll be good for that. Put the green down over here. I want a bit more power cable as well. So we will pick these up without the green cable coil in our hands, which will make them just run-of-the-mill red cables. I have a nagging suspicion that I'm about to run out of coal, which is going to turn off my solar tracking. Let me just go check on that real quick. Yeah, we ran out of coal. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to shut this off, and I'm actually going to yank the big battery out of here. I'm going to swap it into there, and we'll just have a small battery there for the time being. This way I can make sure that my solar panels stay on overnight. I can get another large battery into my area power controller that is doing my arc furnace, my auto lathe, and my electronics printer. Once we start doing steel smelting on the next episode. But for now, this makes sure that I will have a constant stream of power going towards my solar tracking circuit. So we're going to go ahead and deconstruct the solar panel. A crowbar will take off the piece of glass, then a hand drill will take it back down to its base kit. Then we'll head on up here. Looks like the orientation is correct. We will set our glass panel back onto there to get it ready to roll. We will extend out the power network, leaving room for future expansion because I eventually want to get 2 more solar panels here. So that'll be good there. Then we will want to get our green ones to get that connected to the data network. And as you can see, that one is facing the wrong direction because we have not yet adjusted the horizontal to have it at negative 90 degrees, which we will do now. And there we go. We have got a trio of solar panels all set up for near perfect efficiency solar tracking that will feed their power into not only this area power controller, but also this area power controller, ensuring that we will never have any sort of power issues on our tracking network. We could put them on one network. However, one thing I like to do is I like to have all of my manufacturing on its own network so that if I need to shut all of it off to conserve power, I can do that. What we're going to do on the next episode is we are going to work on steel smelting, and once we get some steel, that will allow us to construct more batteries, both the large battery to put right there and also a stationary battery kit, which is a large capacity battery that we will use to provide a constant source of power for our base and the ability to bank a lot of power. Since we're going to be generating so much power now that we have these solar panels that are automatically tracking the sun, we'll be able to generate a lot of power without having to constantly come back to the solar panels to adjust them. And we can bank that power in a stationary battery kit. So now I'll show you. As we talked about in the last episode, you will never get 100% efficiency right off the bat because these solar panels simply do not go down to 0 degrees. There's that about 15 degrees of dead zone that you just lose. That's why we had to subtract 15 from the solar angle when we brought it in. But as the sun gets a little higher, you'll see that our efficiency climbs, and it will continue climbing right up to about the 100% mark. Sometimes we'll be at 99%, but hey, you know what? If we're only generating 499 watts instead of 500, I can live with that. You'll notice that our solar angle, it's strange, it does not want to show me what the solar angle is there. There's some different things you can do with that solar angle that are kind of funny. I don't even fully understand the different modes. Have never really had a reason to, but we can see right here, we're still not quite getting 100% efficiency. which makes me wonder if I messed something up slightly somewhere, which is very likely that I made some sort of small error. I have been known to make such small errors. Let's see here. This is reading our solar angle. It is subtracting 15, dividing it by 1.5. Maybe I was supposed to divide by 1.5 first? I think that might be what I did wrong. I think I'm supposed to divide by 1.5 first before I subtract 15, maybe. I'll figure that one out. I'll get back to you guys. I'll get this ironed out and we'll get our solar efficiency all the way up there. But for now, we are generating a very healthy charge of about 490 watts on each one of our solar panels at 98% efficiency. It's really bothering me that we're not higher than that. That is providing us with plenty of power to keep this small battery topped off, and then also the large battery inside this APC, which is going to have to serve as my suit's battery backup for the time being until I get to build more batteries. And there you have it, everyone. We've got automated solar tracking up and going. With our power source secure, we're going to turn our attention to minerals, from turning these iron and some coal into steel. And then we will get into the basics and maybe some of the advanced parts of smelting, get into batteries, which you can construct with steel, and see where our adventures take us. That is going to be me signing off for tonight. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we'll catch you next time. We'll see you. Bye.